Alright guys, at this point they're just giving this away. Okay, so in the first two parts, I'd broken down much of the trailer for Watching and Dreaming, as I believed it presented an outline for the entirety of the finale. I determined that the Collector's game would be made up of 3 stages, with the first 2 splitting our heroes into 2 distinct teams. As the Hexite squad had taken the L, they were all then turned into puppets, with the Collector keeping his focus locked on Luce, King, and Ida. And oh my Titan guys, was I right or was I right? This hand we see is totally just the Hecate Amity puppet. The Hecate Amity puppet. The Hecate Amity. What the Hecate Amity? I've been wanting to use that line for so long. The Collector's final challenge strays the furthest from reality, as he's divided the main trio and locked them each inside their dreams. Now they must navigate their own personalized nightmares, with each one having to overcome their greatest fears alone. Luce's challenge has centered around her own self-doubt, as she compares herself to Belos because she'd helped him on his quest, and as she's ultimately unable to overcome these insecurities, she's had to rely on her puppet friends to help her figure it out. I'd explained that even as puppets, the Hexite squad would still be able to find a way to help, and that they'd overcome the Collector's spell to come together for Luce. Essentially stuck in a constant state of watching and dreaming, I'd outlined how the puppets weren't left completely dormant, and that not only could they process what was happening around them, but as they'd all been held together underneath the same spell, they were secretly connected, as if stuck in the same dream. I guess that would make him the connector instead. Huh?
We talked about this!
I'm sorry. And keeping a keen eye as everything else was unfolding, the Hexite squad were able to figure out what Luce needed, and in a combined effort of immense concentration, they were able to join her challenge, even if only for a moment. With them able to figure out that the light glyph was the key, they'd then pass that info on to Luce so that she could win the game. And again, Amity being confirmed as a puppet really reinforces this, as it essentially confirms that the entire Hexite squad are all still stuck as puppets when they come to help Luce, having only been able to break out of their trance for a moment before being pulled back and trapped again by the Collector. Wait, what? Oh, it's not real? Whatever, I don't need it. I still think they're all definitely puppets, based on what I said in the last video. But anyway, that's where we left off in the previous part of the breakdown. And before we move on, there's one thing I need to address. I'd posed that one of the ways they might have learned about the glyph was if Odalia had heard about it while working for the Collector, as I don't think that she would have been included in the games, and would most likely just be left to clean up all the puppets. She would have the opportunity to thus learn this information, and then pass it on to the Hexite squad, most likely without even knowing. I'd suggested that in seeing her daughter turned into a puppet, she might actually start to feel bad and try to talk to Puppet Amity. However, as Amity couldn't respond, it would be like more of a monologue, where she'd go on about their family, and end up talking about the challenge, and in the process, she'd reveal the information about the glyph. I think a lot of this stands, but there's just one glaring error. Odalia doesn't have the capacity to feel bad. So even though I think this scenario makes a lot of sense, I think I also need to frame it in a slightly different way. Rather than feeling bad or being sorry in any way, she would instead just be upset with her, believing she made a mistake. Just focusing on her flaws in her typical condescending manner, and instead berating Amity for getting turned into a puppet.
What are you thinking?
She'd expressed that her decision to stick with Luce was foolish, and how she'd chosen the wrong side by trying to win with all her friends. Maybe we'll even get a callback to her not liking Willow from the start. But either way, she'll express that she can't believe that her daughter is dating a human, as they're just so far beneath them and a disgrace to their name. This would resonate with Amity, really setting her off and breaking through to her subconscious to pull her from the dream. As her mother explains that humans are weak and not nearly good enough to associate with blights, she'll comment on the glyphs and Luce's lack of natural magic, and exposit how the Collector has also taken note of this. This is when she'll elaborate on the Collector's final game, and reveal that using the light glyph is the key to getting her out. She'd then go on to highlight how stupid humans are, and that Luce is just dumb for not finding the answer yet. It's quite simple, really, but I'm not surprised she hasn't figured it out. I don't know why my Odalia kinda sounds like Philip, but she does. In reality, it's actually her that's being stupid, as she doesn't even realize she might be giving them the answer, and as the scene would close out by panning down to Amity's hand, it reveals that that's exactly what Odalia has done. This version of the scene was actually my little sister's idea, and for anyone who's seen our For the Future theories, you know my little sister is pretty big brain.
Buff brains! Buff brains!
Yeah!
Get ready to hear a lot more of her theories coming soon. This plotline of Amity and the rest of the Hexite squad has made up the other half of the bulk of Act 2, and while the main half is focused on Luce, King, and Ida, it was the actions of the puppets that had driven the plot the most. As they've now managed to break over into Luce's nightmare, this represents the moment in which our two plots converge, and as they were able to find the key to Luce's challenge, we can finally take a look at how it's all gonna go down. As I don't think King and Ida will be conflicted like Luce, I'm pretty sure they'll both be able to get through their dreams, and as they both come out the other side having completed their challenges, Luce will be the only one still left in the game. It's at this moment that I think everything will change, and the Collector will narrow his focus to now just go after Luce. This is where he'll notice that her friends have come to help, and I don't think he'll take kindly to them breaking his rules. At the peak of his frustration and his hatred for Luce, the Collector will decide that King and Ida aren't done, and with a plan to make the most damaging challenge that he can, he'll manipulate the people that she loves to fight against her. This is why the Clawthorns get a monstrous transformation information, as they're both being changed and then controlled by the Collector. Once he's got them locked, he'll send them into Luce's dream, and they'll have no choice but to go at her with everything they've got. This is supported by the tears in their eyes, as they're both being made to do something they would never. Either that, or they just drank the potion they used on Warden Wrath. That would actually be a pretty awesome callback. I've heard it thrown around a few times that this could just be a new ability for them, but I don't think this is the case, as they're not the same kind of demon, and so they wouldn't just randomly get the same kind of power. If it was a new power, it would have to come from something. And other than one possibility that I'll get to in part 5, I don't think there's any evidence for this in the trailer. I really think the Collector is making them fight her, as not only does this make her challenge so much harder, but it also provides a massive turning point in her character growth. I think when faced with King Anita no longer on her side, Luce will finally realize that she can't do this alone, that she shouldn't have to, that she doesn't have to, and she doesn't have to take all of this on by herself.
You goob. Hey, this isn't all on you.
Yeah, we have teammates now. Meow meow.
I think having her friends here will drive this point home, and she'll finally recognize that she's worthy of being helped, that her friends were so determined to be able to get to her, so focused on her that they could best the Collector. Like, if that isn't a power of friendship moment, then I don't know what is. This is when Amity will give her the light glyph, as Luce now accepts that someone else can have the answer, and that whatever she needs to do in order to get through this challenge, it was only with her friends that she was able to get it done. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not exactly sure what the glyph is for, but I'm assuming there's more to it than just trying to wake her up. I mean, it could just wake her up, as we do get this conversation.
You have to wake up. How? You turn on the light.
But I don't think this is enough to confirm that that's what it's for, as by completing the challenge, you would then just wake up. And so it's possible that that's just what Amity was implying. Use the glyph to win the challenge, and so then you'll wake up. It would also be pretty boring if it did just wake her up, as it would act like more of a cheat code than part of the actual game. Furthermore, this purpose is just far too general, as it implies that King Anita could have won this way as well. This shouldn't be the case, as the Collector's final challenges are meant to be unique, each tailored specifically to the player's greatest fears. This implies that each one would have a different answer, and that the solution it required would directly address the conflict. As I've expressed that Luce's challenge will attack her insecurities, being centered around her inward self-comparison to Belos. Whatever she has to do in order to beat this challenge would then have to be directly in contention with those feelings. Basically, the solution to the challenge should actually match the problem. This is why the light glyph will be her final answer, as it represents the truth of who she is compared to Belos. Even though their methods of wielding magic are the same, their intentions behind practicing this magic are not, and so even though they've both set out to find the same glyphs, their success in achieving this has been completely different. Where Luce had essentially just been handed some of the glyphs, Philip had only struggled, as if cut off from the magic.
You do have a strange intuition with these. It took me years to figure that out. Almost like the Titan himself didn't want me to have that knowledge.
It's been hinted that the Titan still possesses an awareness, and has judged them both accordingly on their journeys through the Isles. And his glyph magic harnesses the power of the Titan. So too has it been hinted that the Titan had intervened. And so this gap in difficulty is really just a reflection of their actions, and showcases which one of them the Titan thinks is worthy. Belos was closed off, single-minded and bitter, where Luce had opened up and embraced the Boiling Isles. With her genuine wonder and open-minded observation, she'd appreciated what Belos had only sought to destroy.
Magic is a gift from the island. Magic is everywhere.
Thank you, Island!
It seems the Titan recognized this malice in Philip, and thus withheld from guiding him in his pursuit of using glyphs, where Luce had instead learned to respect the Titan's gifts, and had allowed herself to listen, and so thus the Titan answered. As she was able to find the light glyph where Philip could not, it suggests that in the Titan's eyes, the two are not the same. And so maybe in activating this glyph within her dream, she could highlight this difference and finally prove herself wrong. This would be that definitive answer she needs that would allow her to finally recognize she's nothing like Belos.